Gonna try to do this as quick as possible in terms of the MLS Matchweek number 5 preview, because tomorrow I will be boarding a flight to San Diego, and that flight is going to be at 8:55 in the morning, so that means I have to wake up early and also have to sleep a little bit early tonight. And after I finish this video, I'm going to immediately go and do my packing. I mean, I usually don't pack a lot whenever I go on a holiday, but still, I need time to pack my stuff and get ready for this weekend getaway in San Diego, and that I won't be back until Monday night. And speaking of that, most likely the review is going to be on Tuesday. I mean, I know I'll be back on Monday night, but it's going to be very late at night. And depend on the fact that do I still have enough energy after coming back so late on Monday night, I would either do the review on that day or do it on Tuesday and basically upload this video on Tuesday. And to be fair, regardless, I'm going to upload this on Tuesday, because if I do it late at Monday night, I'm going to upload this in Tuesday early morning. But yeah, either way, let's get into the preview now. And obviously this week there is 12 games, which is the full slate in terms of MLS Matchweek. And we begin with the first Friday game of the season, which is going to be Toronto FC versus NYCFC. TFC, of course, are perfect so far with 2 wins out of 2 games, and they also currently play the least amount of game out of any team in MLS, while NYCFC, they also are unbeaten, but they also are winless in this game because they have drawn the first 3 games so far this season. TFC, of course, beat the Revs 3-2 at home, while NYCFC drew 2-2 against LAFC at home. In terms of the last 5 meetings, TFC and NYCFC in the last meeting, NYCFC gets the 3-2 victory, and then when NYCFC was playing at home, they won 2-1 against Toronto. Then TFC did beat NYCFC 4-0 in 2017. Both teams drew in the other meeting in 2017. And then in the playoff series in 2016, TFC absolutely destroyed NYCFC 5-0. And, you know, when you look at this matchup, I think I think TFC will definitely be the favorites coming into this, considering the fact that so far the first 2 games, they have definitely looked alright, and definitely looked like a team that was back in 2016 and 2017 when they were winning a lot. And I don't think a lot of people kind of expected the fact that this team can get off to a good start, consider how much of disaster it was in CCL, and that I thought this team was going to be a bottom feeder. And for NYCFC, you know, 3 straight draw to start the season. It's definitely not bad, but they also have played 2 games so far at home, and they dropped points in those 2 games. And, you know, getting draws is good if you are playing on the road, but getting draws at home is definitely not a good thing. And, you know, if you don't start winning games and get 3 points on the board, then yeah, you can get like 10 draws or even like 11 draw heading into the halfway mark, but as long as if you don't get a win, NYCFC is going to be near the bottom of the table, and that is definitely, there's going to be decision that NYCFC front office is going to make in terms of whether or not they want to keep Domai Torren or not. And also for TFC, I'm kind of expecting that Pozuelo is going to make his debut in this game, because I know I didn't mention this on the news of the week, but he officially have arrived at Toronto, and they even like took the picture, and Pozuelo, of course, even signed the contract, so he's now eligible to play in this game, and it will be interesting to see, will he actually start in this game, or maybe coming off the bench to make his MLS debut. But next up, Chicago. They play against the RedBulls. Chicago, of course, are winless so far this season. They have drawn 1 and lost 2, while the RedBulls, their record is pretty even. 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 losses. For the Fire, they lost 4-2 against the Sounders at home, but not for lack of trying. The RedBulls lost to Orlando 1-0 at home, which is probably the most surprising result so far in this early part of the season. In the last 5 meetings, Chicago lost 1-0 to the RedBulls, but then they beat the RedBulls at Red Bull Arena 2-1. And I think that was one of maybe 2 or 3 games that the RedBulls weren't able to even get a point out of Red Bull Arena. I mean, the RedBulls were very good last season at home, and this was one of the rare losses that they have. The RedBulls, of course, then beat Chicago 4-0 in that 2017 playoff series, and I believe it was the knockout round, and that was the only game that Chicago has in the playoffs in the last 5 years. So imagine being a fan that have seen your team not make the playoffs, and when they made the playoffs, they lost 4-0. Oh wait, isn't that kind of something the Quakes experienced also back in 2017 when they got destroyed 5-0 by the Whitecaps? But yeah, let's not talk about that. Chicago then drew 1-1 against the RedBulls in 2017, and then the RedBulls won 2-1 against Chicago when this matchup was at Red Bull Arena. And, when I look at this matchup for Chicago, they definitely have a good attack, and getting Nico Gaitan is definitely going to be even a bigger upgrade in terms of their attack. And just like Pozuelo, Gaitan, I think he's also eligible to play in this game, so maybe he could make his debut with Chicago in this one. But I think the only reason why Chicago is not higher up in the table and haven't got a win so far this season is because the defense have been the downfall of their very good attack. I mean, that last game against the Sounders was a pure example of how bad their defense is, and it's not going to get easier when they play against the RedBulls, and the RedBulls definitely have a very good, decent attack and also a very stingy defense. And for the RedBulls, unlike the loss that they have against Orlando City, where they have a lot of key guys missing because of international duty or injuries, they're going to get most of those guys back. And yeah, this is going to be a very tough task for Chicago coming into this game, and we shall see how this one will work out. But next up, Minnesota. They continued their road to Allianz Field, and their fourth of 5 games on the road to start the season as they play against New England. And when I look at this matchup, I would normally say that this is a matchup where Minnesota has a good opportunity to get another road win before they open Allianz Field in a couple of weeks. But in many ways, I want to also say that this is a game for Minnesota. They definitely want to win this one. And I wouldn't say it's a must-win for them, but it's one that I expected them to win, and I think Loons fans are going to be expecting them to win against New England. New England right now, they are an absolute train wreck right now, and, I think, as I mentioned in the news of the week, I think they are the worst team right now in the league. There's just so much kind of problem with this team that it might take like at least 10 to 15 minutes to explain what is gone wrong for New England. I mean, to kind of just give you a short summary, it's basically the fact that this team is divided into 3 separate departments: the players, the manager, and also the front office, and all of those 3 departments are hugely disconnected and divided. And when you have that happen, usually that means that the team is not going to function. I mean, it's bad enough to have the players and the manager having kind of a divide and a disconnection, but to have the players and the manager to have a disconnection, and also the manager and the ownership having disconnection and disagreement, yeah, that's when you know that a club is just on an absolute train wreck, and it is just a dumpster fire right now for the New England Revolution. So for Minnesota, again, I expect them to win this game. And so far, Minnesota has got a lot. They have played a lot of cupcake games to start the season. I mean, when you play Vancouver, San Jose, and now New England. 3 teams that probably is going to finish near the bottom of the table. Yeah, that obviously is going to really favor you, and those are the games that you are definitely going to win. But at the same time, for Minnesota, they are definitely on the path of potentially making the playoffs, because if you win your road games against teams that you definitely could beat on the road, and you also win most of your home games, which I know Minnesota is going to do when they open up that new stadium that they have, they definitely are going to make the playoffs. So, yeah, for Minnesota, this is a big chance for them to get even in a better position heading into this early season of potentially making the playoffs. But next up, Sporting KC, they take on Montreal, and Montreal is another one of those teams that have a lot of road games to start the season, and I think Montreal and Minnesota, both of these teams are kind of doing identical thing. Both of them have identical record, but also Montreal has played a lot of easy game to start the season. I mean, they also play San Jose and play Orlando City, which those are the 2 wins that they got so far this season. They did lose to Houston in a game that they'll be very disappointed that they dropped points. Consider they had the lead in that game and had a chance to at least get a point out of BBVA Compass Stadium. Well, for Sporting KC, their record is currently dead even, and in terms of the last 5 meetings, I didn't even talk about the last 5 meetings between that Minnesota versus New England game. Actually, there's only 2 meetings between both of these teams. Minnesota, of course, beat New England 2-1 in the last meeting, while New England did beat Minnesota 5-2 in that 2017 meeting. But we know that in 2017, Minnesota was kind of the joke of MLS. This Minnesota team is not the joke of MLS anymore. Instead, it's now New England's turn to be kind of like the joke of MLS. But talk about going back to this game, the last 5 meetings for both of these teams. Montreal, of course, won 2-0 against Sporting KC in the last meeting. Sporting KC then drew 1-1 against Montreal in the 2017 meeting. Montreal, of course, drew 2-2 against Sporting KC in the 2016 meeting. Sporting KC, of course, won 2-1 against Montreal in the 2015 meeting. And Montreal lost 2-1 to Sporting KC in the 2014 meeting. So, for the last 5 years, both of these teams have 1 meeting per year, mainly because both of these teams are not in the same conference. And, for Sporting KC, I don't know if this midweek is the week where they're going to be playing against Rayados in that CCL semifinal, and I don't know if they're actually going to be away or not. I'm assuming probably they're going to be at home for the first leg. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a very, very tall order in terms of the CCL matchup against Rayados. And you wonder, would Peter Vermes decided to rest some of the guys for this game? Because Montreal, this is a team that definitely is not a easy team to beat on the road, as it's shown so far this season. And we know what happened when Sporting KC decided to rest some of their guys in that Sporting KC versus Colorado game, and how it did not work whatsoever. So for Peter Vermes, there is a big decision that he has to make, and I think most likely he's going to rest some of these guys, because when you're facing Rayados in the CCL semifinal and a team that is definitely one of the best team in Liga MX, you definitely need your best available squad for those 2 legs. So for Sporting KC, they're going to definitely go maybe with a weaker squad, and this is a good opportunity for Montreal to continue to have a very good start so far early this season. But next up, the Quakes. They are playing against LAFC. Now, on paper, this looked like a complete mismatch, because the Quakes, they're one of the 2 teams that still have not got a point so far. Their team would be Vancouver, that hasn't got a single point on the board. Well, LAFC is the first team so far this season that has got to double-digit point, and they are currently leading the Supporter Shield race. So it's basically last versus first in this matchup, which, when you see that happen, it's usually a mismatch, right? Well, the Quakes did beat LAFC in the preseason. They did beat them handily 3-0, and I know it's only the preseason, and it was in front of an empty Bank of California stadium because it was a closed door game. Maybe that game is a game where Almeida might show the tape to the player, and hopefully that might encourage the player. But in all honesty, I don't expect the Quakes to get anything out of this game. I mean, right now for the Quakes, as a Quakes fan, I really feel like the only thing that I want to talk about this team is what are we going to do in the summer transfer window, and also are we going to make some move before the summer transfer window. Danny Houston this week just got his green card, which means that now we have one of our international spot that is open up. And on top of that, we also have a DP spot that is open too. And I believe we also have some cap space to start spending start getting guys and start spending some money on players that we desperately need. So the question is, do we do it in the summertime, which looks like that is most likely the case, or do we decide to go into the free agency market and claim someone off the waiver, which is something that the Quakes have not done very often. So most likely they're going to wait till the summer, which I don't blame them, because in the summer that's when you usually get the best player. But if we're going to do that, then be prepared to suffer throughout the rest of the first half of the season. I really don't expect this team to... I know this team will still get points, don't get me wrong. Some people say that this team won't get any points until July. That's just crazy, because I know there are some winnable games and some games that we can at least get a point. And maybe sometimes when an opponent play against the Quakes and they see them having no points, they might overestimate them. And that's what LAFC did to RSL in the last game, where LAFC overestimated, or actually they underestimated RSL. Overestimated is actually the wrong word to say, but they kind of underestimate the fact that RSL was just going to, they thought that they could just roll over RSL because RSL was completely depleted and the team, they're just basically playing homegrown player. Well, LAFC, they got to be careful with the Quakes too. And although the Quakes are most likely not going to play the team that was featured in the second half in that Monterrey friendly, it is a team that can definitely, if we can get our defense and also get our attack kind of sorted out, maybe we can get a draw out of this game. And that's a big maybe too. But at the end of the day, I don't expect us to get anything out of this, and I'm just hoping that in the summer we got to start spending some money. We got to address, the midfield and the attack. I know the defense is bad, but I feel like the number one concern with this team has to be that midfield and attack. Our midfield is just way too slow right now. And also on the attacking end, we can't score goals. So far, we have scored, 2 goals this season? Yeah, we just don't have a goal scored on this team. And maybe a lot of that has to do with Houston not being in the squad. But Houston is, if we're just going to rely on Houston as the guy that's going to score a lot of goals, don't expect this team to win a lot of games too this season and score a lot of goals this season too. So yeah, we'll see how it's going to go. And then next up, and in the final game on this board before I switch board, is FC Cincinnati. They play against the Union, and FC Cincinnati, and I forgot, again, the last 2 meetings between the Quakes and LAFC, and I'm just going to quickly talk about it because, yeah, it included one that I don't want to talk about, but I have to, which is the 4-3 loss that the Quakes suffer in their first ever meetings. Like I said, I don't want to talk about how we lost 4-3 in this game because I know a lot of Quakes fans really do think that that is one of the most heartbreaking losses that we have suffered as an organization. And also, we lost 2-0 against LAFC on the road in the second meeting. So that's that. But moving on into the next one, FC Cincinnati, they play against the Union. And FC Cincinnati are probably one of the most surprising teams so far with 2 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Well, the Union, they have 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses. FC Cincinnati, of course, won 2-0 against the Revs away, while the Union won 3-0 against Columbus for their first win this season. And this is the first ever meeting between both of these teams. And I think when you look at this matchup, yeah, FC Cincinnati is going to be the favorites. And right now, Cincinnati is probably one of the hottest teams right now in the league. And, you know, the fact that they're going to get most of their starters and most of their star power back from international break in this game just tells me that this team is going to be much stronger. Like, if you thought that performance against New England was, those players look very good in that performance against New England, wait till when those star players that they rely on gets back from this team and gets into this game. This team can definitely be a very scary team. And the other scary thing about Cincinnati is that the first 3 games, which when you look at when the schedule released, everybody thought that FC Cincinnati was going to lose all 3 of their first 3 games because it contains 3 teams that has been in the MLS Cup in the last 2 years. But instead, that's not the case. FC Cincinnati were able to get two wins, 2 out of 3 wins against those teams, and they are definitely looking like a very dangerous side. And as for the Union, you know, they finally got that pressing system work last week, but I think there has to be a little bit of an IBIT mark in terms of work, because last week they were playing a Columbus team that was pretty decimated because of players that went to join their national team and were on international duty, and those players that were on international duty are just the heart of that Columbus team, and they're playing the press system against a Cincinnati team that love to just sit back and defend and counter you, and I don't think the press system will work in this case. So, you know, for the Union, they might need to do something else besides the press system. Like, when you're a press team against a low block team, that low block team will just gladly give you the ball. And we know that when Philly has possession, they don't know what to do with it. Like, they really struggle in terms of having most of the possession. And knowing Cincinnati being a team that don't really rely on possession and just kind of sit back and defend and try to ask their opponent to really kind of just go at us and see if you can break them down. And so far we have seen only one team has been able to be very successful at that, and that was Seattle. And even in that game, they didn't really try to do that. They didn't really try to sit back and defend. In the last couple of games, they did exactly that, and they have been very, very successful. So for the Union, yeah, this is going to be a very daunting task for them, but we'll see. We'll see how this game is going to turn out. But yeah, either way, now let's switch board and look at the other 6 games that is going to be happening this week. But yeah, next up, Columbus. They play against a struggling Atlanta team that has a lot of concern right now. You know, Atlanta, their main concern so far this season has got to be their attack, which has been uncharacteristically bad. And unfortunately, in this game, I don't think it's going to improve because they are going to be about to play against a team that has been very good in terms of defending. Now, I know Columbus did give up 3 goals against the Union, and you know, when you see that, you would think, what do you mean if Columbus are good at defending when they gave up 3 goals against Philly? Well, before that game, they only have conceded 1 goal, and that Philly game that the Crew play, yeah, they were missing a lot of important starters. So guys like Jarzy Zardes, their main goal scorer, Will Trapp, who is one of their main defensive protection, and also Zach Steffen, their shot stopper. Those guys, it's clear that once they are removed from this Columbus team, Columbus is kind of going to be falling apart. But the good news is they will get these guys back for this game. And, for Atlanta, like I said, they are struggling right now. Frank de Boer's got to figure this out. And, he's now have the international break to kind of look at it and see why in the world is the tactics that he is using is not working with this team. And I hope that maybe during this international break he either think about maybe modifying his tactics to just making sure that this team can start winning again, or just do what Tata Martino did, or maybe even watch the Mexico versus Paraguay game, because that game was a perfect example of what Tata did to Atlanta last year. And if Frank de Boer took some notes in that game, yeah, he should try to do something that Tata did with this team last year. So in terms of the last 5 meetings, they actually have 5 meetings total all time. Atlanta has won 3-1 against Columbus in the last meeting. Atlanta did beat Columbus on the road 2-0 in the second meeting in 2018. Both teams drew 0-0 in that playoff series, but Columbus did win on penalty and knock out Atlanta in the knockout round. Columbus, of course, lost to Atlanta 2-0 in 2017, and Atlanta beat Columbus again in 2017 3-1. So Atlanta definitely has a very good record against Columbus, but again, this Atlanta attack is just look very flat and just look very uninspiring. And when you're facing against a team that do not give up a lot of goal, and you have a very flat and uninspiring attack, don't expect to get a ton of goals in this game. But next up, and also one more thing that I will add with Atlanta, even if they lose this game, I think it will also build more concern, but I don't think it's a time where they need to panic a lot. Although I will say this, it will be getting time to kind of panic if they start losing games. Because right now, I think the pass that Atlanta is receiving, and the pass that I kind of give them, is that they have CCL and that they have to kind of like balance that workload, which they're finding very tough to do right now. So once they are only focused on MLS, Atlanta should be able to get back on track. If not, then that's when you hit the panic button, and that's when there is real concern with this team moving forward. Next up, Colorado. They play against the Dynamo. So the Rapids, of course, drew 1-1 against Sporting KC, which looked like it was a good result against one of the best teams in the league, right? Until you realize they had a 1-0 lead and gave that up at home late in the game. While Houston, of course, won 3-2 against Vancouver. The last 5 meetings, Colorado and Houston drew each other in a scoreless draw. Houston won 2-0 against Colorado in the other meeting in 2018. Then Houston, of course, lost to Colorado at home 1-0. And then in the other meeting, Colorado actually beat Houston 3-1 in 2017, while Colorado and Houston drew again in the 2016 meeting. And, for Colorado and for Rapids fan specifically, I kind of want to ask, are you satisfied with the way that this team is playing right now? Because on one hand, I think you're satisfied with the fact that the team definitely look much better than they are this season. They definitely look like they're much better on the attack. And, the defense, at times, it still look very iffy, but at least it's not as god-awful as it was last year. But the problem is, as much as there are some improvement that the Rapids are showing, they're still not getting the result. It's still the same kind of result of them just dropping points at home and losing on the road. And now they have a home game against a Houston team that, they've been pretty good so far this season. But, the Dynamo, whenever they go on the road, there's always going to be a lot of question mark with this team. They're just not a very good road team. So you would think that if the Rapids would finally try to get some result and kind of reflect on the good performance that they have done this season, they need to win this game against the Dynamo. But like I said, the Dynamo, they've been pretty good so far this season, and granted, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Dynamo have played a pretty easy schedule. So yeah, we shall see how this game is going to go. But next up, it's RSL take on FC Dallas, and I'm going to call this game the homegrown derby, because I have a feeling both of these teams is going to feel a lot of homegrown in this game, and it could be a game that is named the Battle of the Academies, because both of these teams' academies are very, very good. And, FC Dallas in the last match, they won 2-1 against the Rapids, where they started 5 homegrowns in that game, while RSL matched the amount. Well, they didn't even match. They actually brought in 1 more homegrown and brought in 6 homegrown in that game against LAFC, but unfortunately they lost 2-1 against them. So yeah, something tells me that both team is going to potentially start a lot of homegrown. Although for RSL cases, I'm pretty sure they're gonna bring back some of those guys that they missed in that LAFC game. And the only reason why they had to start so much homegrown player is because most of their guys that are starters for that team are either injured, international duty, or just suspended for that game. So most likely guys like Rusnak and Joao Plata and Savarino, those guys that were on international duty suspended, are going to be back in this game, and we won't see as much homegrown as what we saw with RSL did with LAFC. But still, it will be interesting to see some of these homegrown play in this game. And in terms of the last 5 meetings, RSL, of course, won 2-0 against FC Dallas in the last meeting. Then they drew 1-1 in the other meeting. Dallas won 6-2, or RSL actually, this is actually wrong. It's actually Dallas that won 6-2 against RSL in the 2017 meeting, while RSL, of course, also lost the other meeting to Dallas 3-0, and then in the 2016 meeting, both of them drew 0-0. So, yeah, certainly it's kind of a balance in terms of the last 5 meetings, but I think one of the things that I like about this game is that this is a game where it's going to be featuring a lot of homegrown kind of player, and, for RSL, let's see if that kind of resort against LAFC, which, on paper, it definitely did not look like a good resort because they didn't get anything out of it. But the effort that they put in that game, let's see if it's going to show up again in this game when they play against Dallas. And for Dallas, so far they lost their first road game of the season. They're looking to try to bounce back after losing that first road game against Columbus. But next up, and the final game of the Saturday slate, is Vancouver versus Seattle, also known as the Forgotten Cascadia Derby. So both of these teams are kind of like bipolar in many ways, because Vancouver, of course, as I move down the slide, Vancouver, of course, are winless so far this season and are one of the 2 teams, as I mentioned earlier, that still have not got a win. While Seattle, they are the only team in the league that still have not dropped points and currently are 3-for-3 in terms of their start of the season. Vancouver, of course, lost 3-2 against Houston in the last match, while Seattle won 4-2 against Chicago. Last 5 meetings, Seattle won 2-1 against Vancouver. Then Seattle sweep the series and won 2-0 against Vancouver in 2018. Seattle then beat Vancouver 2-0 again in 2017. Both teams drew 0-0 in 2017. And in 2017, Seattle also beat Vancouver 3-0. And both of these matchup, by the way, is actually the matchup in the conference semifinal. But it's clear that Seattle has a very good record against the Whitecaps recently, and I expect that to continue in this game. Again, as I mentioned before with the Whitecaps, they're still not really there in terms of the chemistry of the team, and that Marc Dos Santos, the tactics that he implement on the team, is still not quite there. And especially they're playing against a Sounders team that is basically the best team right now in the league. Like, they have the best record. Well, they don't have the most points total, but in terms of points total average, they have the best in terms of the entire league. And that attack has just looked very scary so far, and so is the defense too. They look like one of the most complete, if not the most complete team right now in the league. So yeah, expect the Sounders to make it 4 out of 4 to start the season. And then next up, we talk about another team that is currently at the top of the standing in the Eastern Conference. And no, it's not Atlanta or New York. It's actually DC United that is on top of the standing. They play against Orlando City, who won their first game of the season in a pretty surprising result against the RedBulls. While DC United, of course, won 5-0 against RSL. They absolutely blow RSL all the way back to Utah in that game. And then in the last 5 meeting, DC, of course, won 3-2 against Orlando. Orlando, of course, drew 1-1 against DC. I believe this was the opening game of the 2018 season. And then Orlando actually beat DC 2-1 in 2017. They beat them again in 2017 2-0. And they also beat them again to pretty much sweep the series as they win 4-2 against DC United. But keep in mind, back in 2017, DC United was not a very good team. And this DC United team, from what we saw in the first 3 games, yeah, it's clear that this is a very dangerous team. However, one thing that I would say why DC still kind of haven't belonged in that category of the elite class and kind of the standard so far this season for all those good teams that is in the league is because they still have not won on the road. And this is a good chance for them to showcase what they can do on the road against an Orlando City side that they definitely are going to be feeling a little bit confident after they did beat the RedBulls earlier this week, and maybe they can do it again for the second week in a row where they are heavy underdogs coming into this game and they're playing against one of the best team in the league and they're able to get a result. But we shall see. Next up, and in the final game of this week, is the Galaxy against the Timbers, and both of these teams really do not like each other. And in many ways, I feel like they should now just come up with a derby name because both of these teams just do not like each other at all. The Galaxy, of course, won 2 out of their first 3 games. Their record is 2-0-1, while the Timbers, they're 0-1-2. And the Timbers, this game will mark officially the 1/3 mark in terms of the 12-game brutal road trip that they have to suffer to start the season. The Galaxy, of course, won 3-2 against Minnesota, while Portland lost 3-0 against FC Cincinnati. In the last 5 meetings, both teams drew the last meeting 1-1 in 2018. Galaxy won 2-1 against Portland in 2018. Then Portland beat the Galaxy 3-1 in 2017. Portland won again in 2017, which I believe that was also a season opener as they beat the Galaxy 1-0. And then the Galaxy beat Portland 2-1 back in 2016. And this for Portland, this is definitely going to be a tough one for them. I mean, Portland is in a very bad shape right now. Not only the fact that their attack is not really contribute, but they right now currently have the leakiest and the worst defense in the league. And they're facing against one of the best attack in the league, that is the Galaxy. And this Galaxy team, I believe I heard that they are going to get Alessandrini and Zlatan back in the starting 11. And if that is the case, then yeah, expect some big fireworks from the Galaxy attack and that they might just completely destroy the Timbers. I mean, the Timbers right now, they're just trying to ride out the storm and just try to get to June when they have their first game at Providence Park in a respectable place where they can do what DC and also what DC and Seattle did last year by making a second half resurgent and just win all their home games so that they can be in the playoffs by the end of the year. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for all 12 of these games preview. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games, and make sure you leave a comment below for your prediction of these games. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time. And remember, I will be doing the review on Tuesday because I have to go down to San Diego, and I'm not coming back until Monday. So yeah, and also, while I'm down there, I'm going to try my best to watch at least some of these games. I'll probably maybe just watch some highlights in some of these games because most likely I won't have a lot of time to watch some of these games, especially the day game on Saturday. But yeah, I'm going to try my best to watch as many games as possible while I'm down there. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.